Alrighty, bitey. So today's day 18, and I still have the bad lighting, but it's like I think 3 in the morning now. Um, I was torn between talking about either American Psycho and certain tastes of certain social circles, or about success and how, your external environment actually shapes your success. Like you don't have that much control of your success as you might think. And I think just based off the cover and how I feel right now, I'll go with Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, in which he describes how certain individuals achieve so much success. And I think the most interesting and the most important idea that he has throughout this book is that your environment shapes you. I think there's a saying that goes something like, if you have 4 friends that are millionaires, you'll be the fifth. If you have 4 friends that are fit, you'll be the fifth. And his idea is essentially that besides an environment, you need to be lucky, right? Because if you say that your environment and the people around you shape you, then obviously you need a certain bit of luck to land an environment. Same goes with in which country you were born, right? So these are things that are arbitrary that we cannot control. And these things, surprisingly, make out a lot of our success. The Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew once remarked that 80% of the individual is kind of culturally like if you come to the world, 80% of who you are, according to Lee Kuan Yew, is a cultural heritage. So, in other words, you cannot change your roots, right? It's an interesting topic, I guess, to discuss for integration and stuff. But for now, just remember that your roots, they cannot be changed. And where does that lead you to? If you were born into a pretty wealthy family, right? Let's look at the life of Bill Gates to explain what I mean by you need to be in the right environment. You have to have the right mindset, which might be inherited via the cultural environment you're in. And you need to be also at the right place, in this case, the right country. Now, if you look at Bill Gates, we essentially admire him because he seems to be this software genius out of Harvard who dropped Harvard to build Microsoft, who then, turned it into this multi-billion-dollar business that we now know. Bill Gates came from a pretty wealthy family, actually, that valued education. Now, if you look at today's report or reports of high school students, you'll see that there is a significant correlation between students who have high earning parents and students who are kind of like middle class and below. If you have a household that values education, then you are inclined to perform well academically. In terms of Bill Gates, his parents were well read. They appreciated, education. So it's no wonder they actually enrolled Bill Gates at one of the top schools, private schools in the US, where they had a computer at that time. Now, if you are in the 1970s, 80s, your school did not have a computer in any sense because at that time these things were so big and so expensive. Like, there's no way you can get your hand on these machines as a school, even a private school. So Bill Gates was incredibly lucky that his mom, I think, led a certain council that pushed to get these machines for the school. Another thing that was in Bill Gates' favor was that he had work experience, 2 software companies where he studied coding from a very young age. So by the time he founded Microsoft in his mid-20s, he had 7 years of experience of coding. That's more than or 90% of his classmates. And essentially, how do you get essentially programming experience when all these machines were not there, right? So now I hope I illustrated the case that you need to be incredibly lucky with the resources that you get. That was Bill Gates, right? So you saw family, pretty good status, incredibly good school, work exposure to a field that was not developed yet. That's like me working in stem cell labs before I finish my degree, which is impossible in Germany because there's no way you can get yourself involved in these things without having a higher degree than a bachelor's, but you get the idea now. What else is important besides what we've covered? Sometimes you need to have been born at a time where you can use technology or a certain invention to such an extent that you can become an outlier. In Bill Gates's kind of case, he was lucky enough to be born at a time where he was able to revolutionize the personal computer revolution. That's that didn't make sense, actually, what I've just said. So he revolutionized how we use PCs and software. That's what I want to say. Same with Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs, like he wasn't wealthy, like we know he was adopted. Um, but what he had was a work experience at HP when he was 12. Like he was able to build mentors just because he lived near Silicon Valley and Palo Alto, where he would, I think, found Apple. I think it was Palo Alto. There is a pattern, and you need to be lucky. So in our case, we have AI, right? Now, what is the breakthrough that makes AI really like a frontier technology that we all want to use? Because now AI is like it is evolving, right? But neither me nor I think the general public feel that AI has benefited them in such a way to say, wow, that thing is incredible. Like we are, I think, surprised that, oh, sorry, that we can communicate with the large language models, that we can vibe code certain things, but we are not yet impressed. Even though this tech makes incredible advancements in protein biology, in quantum computing, all that stuff, we didn't reach a breakthrough yet. We didn't develop software where we can reduce the mortality of cancer patients yet. I don't know why I'm always using cancer patients as examples, but just pops to my mind. Otherwise, we didn't solve the energy crisis, right? Like AI hasn't been yet used to develop new forms of storing energy, for instance, in terms of batteries. AI currently is a climate disaster. And also, if you are running AI on these data centers, you're losing a huge chunk of money. So what does that mean for us those who want to become outlier according to Malcolm Gladwell? By the way, I love the cover. It's like so simple, but it's a great book. Just if you have the time, read it. Anyways, for us, the new kind of like lucky time to be in is AI. We have the time to invest in the stocks. We have the time to pick the right companies to work with. Startups preferably where you can get equity. We are at the time where you can build an app, bring it onto the stock market, see what happens, right? Because we still accept ChatGPT wrappers as essential apps for our lives, so you can profit off that. And you are able to join the very best research labs essentially remotely, right? So that's a huge advantage. So if you take all these together, maybe the next outliers might be AI tech founders, but in most cases, what will happen maybe is these new outliers, they will witness the AI revolution to some extent and learn from it, right? So maybe they learned the basic models, how these models actually act as prediction models and how large language models work. So they understand the basics well enough to see a gap and maybe build something around that. But for that to happen, you need to live in the right time, right? So if you are now just coming into high school, maybe you are lucky, right? But specifically people my age, 19, 20, 25, we are going to witness something that we can profit off years later. And then you can use that knowledge, maybe if you're in your mid-20s. Yeah, that's kind of like the best case. But I think I have now concluded my unofficial TED Talk about Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. So I hope the initial idea that sticks to your mind is that success to 80% is a combination of who your parents are, what values do you have in your household, what values is your environment, like what do they encourage, what do they not, what time are you born in, and what time, or like at what time can you use breakthrough technologies and do you have access to them? So these are several factors that you need to keep in mind next time you hear about billionaires, because if they live near Silicon Valley and you don't, like you see what that might, lead to them having way better opportunities than you at becoming outliers than you. Yeah, I hope this is not too depressing though. So thank you for your attention and see you tomorrow for day 20. Bye.